All right, I've done this before. I do this on Tuesdays with tier ranking quarterbacks. And today, I'm going to, at the halfway point of the season, I am going to tier rank every team in the NFL based on one of these five tiers. The top one is Super Bowl contenders. The second one is playoff team. The third one is mid. That's a 7 to 9 win team that just misses the playoffs. Then we've got what teams I think will have a top 10 draft pick. Obviously, there will be 5 teams in that category. And then what teams I think will have a top 5 draft pick. There will obviously be 5 teams in that category. So it is a live tier ranking at the halfway point of the season for every NFL team here at the halfway point, the way I see it. And we are going by division. Starting with the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers. Everybody thought they were the front runner in the NFC. Right now, I think the 49ers are a playoff team. Right now, I can't say they are a Super Bowl contender, but I do think the 49ers are a playoff team. I can't put them any higher than that because they've just not lived up to what they were supposed to be so far. But for right now, I still think the 49ers are a playoff team. The Arizona Cardinals, I wrestled with this one because they are at the top of the division right now. They've looked good the last couple of weeks. I'm still going to put them mid right now. Mid being 7 to 9 win team that just maybe misses the playoffs. I don't know if I've seen enough that I'd be willing to put the Cardinals in the playoffs right now. So I'm going to put them into the mid category. Sorry. I like Kyler. I like what the Cardinals have done the last couple of weeks. The LA Rams, I think the Rams are going to win some games. I think they're going to get better now that they're healthier. But based on other teams, I still think I'm going to put them in mid. I think the Rams are going to be a 7 to 9 win team and just miss out on the playoffs this year. I think they got themselves in too deep of a hole early on. The NFC has a lot of good teams. And I don't know if they're going to be able to recover enough to make the playoffs at the end of the day. So I've got the Rams mid. Seattle Seahawks mid. I think the Seahawks are going to end up being a 7 to 8 win team, missing the playoffs. I think they're good enough to beat the bad teams. I don't think they are good enough to beat consistently the really good teams. I think the Seahawks are mid, and they just missed the playoffs. So the NFC West, a whole lot of mid, and then I've got the 49ers as a playoff team. Let's go to the AFC West with the Denver Broncos, who are 5-3 right now, but their schedule gets tougher. I got the Broncos as mid as well. I got the Broncos mid, just missing out on the playoffs. I just don't buy the Broncos. I like Bo Nix. I think he is getting better. I'm excited about him for them. But I don't think the Broncos are a playoff team this year. I just don't. I think the Broncos are just going to be an 8-9 and have good building blocks to go into next year. The Chargers, you know what? I think the Chargers right now are a playoff team. I think the Chargers, because the AFC is so bad and those last 2 spots in the AFC playoffs feel wide open, I think the Chargers are going to be good enough to grab one of them and be a first-round exit in the playoffs. I think Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh will be enough to get them there. J.K. Dobbins playing well. I think the Chargers will grab maybe the 7 seed by default and then just get knocked out in the playoffs. The Chiefs, obviously, you have to put them as a Super Bowl contender. They're 7-0. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, now D-Hop. I mean, the Chiefs, as long as those guys are there, Mahomes and Andy Reid, they are absolutely a Super Bowl contender. I don't care how bad, quote unquote, they look. The Raiders are top 5 draft pick team. I think the Raiders are one of those top 5 draft pick teams. They're just terrible. They don't have much good going on at all except for Crosby and Bowers, who's playing well. But I think the Raiders are going to be picking in the top 5. Washington Commanders going to the NFC East. I think the Commanders are a playoff team. Commanders are a playoff team. Whether it's winning the NFC East or even if they're a high wild card team, I think the Commanders are absolutely a playoff team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender because Jaden Daniels' rookie year, Dan Quinn's first year as head coach, that feels a little too good to be true. But I absolutely believe the Commanders are a playoff team. The Giants, I think, are a top 10 draft pick. Not bad enough to be a top 5, but I do think the Giants will be picking in the top 10 of the draft. Just outside of Malik Neighbors, not a whole lot going for them. They're kind of lost at quarterback. The Cowboys, mid. The Cowboys are just, they're going to be picking somewhere in the teens in the draft. I just don't think the Cowboys. I got 7 and 10, 8 and 9 for them, missing the playoffs. The Eagles, some of you are going to disagree with this. I think the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender. Why? Because they were just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and almost won with Jalen Hurts, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, with Nick Sirianni, who I don't think is that good of a coach. But now they got Saquon Barkley, who's playing well. People are sleeping on them because I get it. Everybody's excited about the Commanders. They're excited about the Lions. They're excited about the Packers. I get it. But I think the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender. I think they are a sleeper Super Bowl contending team. Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills are also a Super Bowl contender. Josh Allen just playing at such an unbelievable level. Now they've got Amari Cooper in there. They're just, I have to believe. And I didn't think the Bills would be a Super Bowl contender this year. But I think they are. The Bills are definitely in contention for that. The Patriots, top 5 draft pick team. They're one of the 5 that I think will be picking in the top 5 of the draft. Just, I don't know how Drake May's got a concussion, so he'll probably come back at some point. They just don't have a lot of talent on this team. First-year head coach. I think the Patriots will be picking in the top 5. Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are a top 10 draft pick team. Very disappointing year for them. I think they will win a few games because of Tyreek Hill and Tua being back. They are better with them. But I think the Dolphins ultimately will be picking in the top 10. I think they're just in too deep of a hole. Speaking of top 10 draft pick, I think the Jets are also going to be a top 10 draft pick team. Biggest disappointment in the league. Fans just got to be devastated with how things have turned out for them. I think the Jets will be a top 10 draft pick team come April. The Bears. I wrestled with this one, but I think I'm going to put Bears in mid, meaning I think the Bears are just going to miss the playoffs this year. Headed in the right direction. Reason for optimism going forward. But I think the Bears are just going to miss the cut this year. Detroit Lions, Super Bowl contender. Super Bowl contender, absolutely. I mean, this just feels like the year. This feels like the year for the Detroit Lions. So, nothing more needs to be said there. Green Bay, got them as a Super Bowl contender as well, if Jordan Love can stay healthy. And if he can cut back on the turnovers, I think the Packers are absolutely a Super Bowl contender as well. That NFC North ain't no joke. I got 2 Super Bowl contenders from one division. You don't see that a whole lot. But I think the Packers are a Super Bowl contender. The Vikings wrestled with this one, but I think the Vikings are a playoff team. I think the Vikings are a playoff team. I think they're going to be a first-round exit, but I do think their defense is good enough. Sam Darnold's playing well enough. Obviously, Justin Jefferson and all the weapons they have. I think the Vikings are a playoff team, but I think they are a first-round exit playoff team. I just don't trust Sam Darnold to actually win a playoff game. But I think the Vikings are a playoff team. The Bengals, I've tried to hold. I mean, for those of you that remember, I had the Bengals. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC this year. I think that was absolutely dead wrong. I think the Bengals are going to miss the playoffs. I've got the Bengals in the mid category. I think the Bengals are just going to miss out. And, I hate it because I think Burrow's in his prime, but they just don't have a good team. Good enough team, I should say. Baltimore Ravens, as bad as I hate it, they are Super Bowl contenders. Even though they lost this past Sunday to the Browns, I still think the Ravens are Super Bowl contenders. I think they have the talent to get there, especially I think this trade they just made is going to be a huge deal for them down the stretch. Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. The Steelers, I think the Steelers are absolutely a playoff team. In this AFC, I think the Steelers are just about a shoe-in to be a playoff team, and kudos to them. And who knows, because Russell Wilson has experience in the playoffs. Mike Tomlin obviously has experience. So when you've got a quarterback and head coach that are that experienced, that can help you. So the Steelers might win 1 or 2 playoff games, but I absolutely think the Steelers are undoubtedly a playoff team this year, and I didn't think they would be originally. The Browns, I think the Browns are still a top 10 draft pick. I know people are excited about Jameis and what he did, but down the stretch, I think the Browns, having to play the Steelers and the Ravens, having to play the Ravens again, I think the Browns will still be picking in the top 10 of the draft, in my opinion. Tampa Bay, I would have had the Bucs as a playoff team a couple of weeks ago, but with the injuries, I think I got to put the Bucs into the mid category, just missing out on the playoffs. NFC is just going to have too many teams vying for those spots, and I think the Bucs, with those injuries, Chris Godwin not coming back, Mike Evans, it might be a while, I think the Bucs are just going to have a hard time making the playoffs. Again, 2 weeks ago, I would have picked them. The Panthers, absolutely a top 5 draft pick. Probably number 1. The Panthers, I think you won't find many people to argue with this one. They're just terrible. Easy pick there. The Saints, I think they are a top 5 draft pick as well. I think the Saints are going to be picking in the top 5. With them especially, even though they'll get Derek Carr back and maybe win a game or 2, I just think the Saints are just horrible. The Falcons, absolutely a playoff team. I'm not willing to put them as a Super Bowl contender right now because I don't trust their defense. But the Falcons are easily a playoff team because they should absolutely win that division. The Bucs could have given them a run for their money, but with the injuries, I don't think they will. So that division feels gift-wrapped for the Falcons. Now we get to the AFC South. Houston Texans, I've got them as a playoff team. I do not think the Texans are a Super Bowl contender. I just don't see it. I see a lot more inconsistent. I know they're 6-2. They beat the Bills, yes. I just see down the stretch a lot more inconsistencies with them. When you look at the AFC, I just trust the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl a heck of a lot more than I trust the Texans. So I think the Texans are a playoff team. I could even see the Texans getting as far as the AFC Championship game, but I don't think the Texans are a Super Bowl contender, especially with the injuries they've had now. The Colts, some of you are going to flip out, but I think the Colts are a playoff team. Let me explain. I bought into the hopes and dreams maybe. I think the Colts are a playoff team because I do think Joe Flacco could get them to 9 or 10 wins. I think that will be enough to grab the 7 seed. Who else? Ultimately, down the stretch, I do think the Colts have a better roster than the Broncos. And who else is there? The Jets are terrible. The Dolphins are terrible. The Bengals are bad. The Patriots, the Raiders are horrible. So somebody's got to get that 7th seed. And this is part of the reason that a lot of Colts fans are mad because, yeah, they feel like Joe Flacco probably can sneak them into the playoffs. But they're going to be a first-round exit, and you've benched the guy that was supposed to be your future. And what do you have to show for it? A wild card playoff loss, probably getting killed by Buffalo or something like that. So I do think the Colts are a playoff team with Joe Flacco because of how bad the AFC is and because Joe Flacco's played well for them when he's been in, but I think they are a first-round exit. Jacksonville Jaguars. I've got the Jags and the Titans left. And you notice I have 1 spot left for a top 10 draft pick and 1 spot left for a top 5 draft pick. At the end of the day, I think the Jags are a top 10 draft pick and the Titans are top 5. I think the Jags, who have 2 wins, I think Trevor Lawrence, if Brian Thomas comes back at some point, I think they can get to 5-ish wins to get them to the top 5. And right now, with the way the Titans look, with all of the issues they have, I think the Titans are a top 5 draft pick team. So, Super Bowl contenders: Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Lions, Packers, and Ravens. Playoff teams: 49ers, Chargers, Commanders, Vikings, Steelers, Falcons, Texans, and Colts. The Joe Flacco Colts. Mid teams that are just going to miss the cut: Cardinals, Rams, Seahawks, Broncos, Cowboys, Bears, Bengals, and Bucks. Top 10 draft pick: Giants, Dolphins, Jets, Browns, Jags. Top 5 draft pick: Raiders, Patriots, Panthers, Saints, and the home team, the Tennessee Titans. That is my tier rank for every NFL team at the halfway point this season.